Okay, a little sound check here, I guess. Looks like it's okay. Uh, and step by step. So there's a two-cell pair, northeast and southwest one. The southwest one reproduced. And hopefully, all right, so yeah, so there. We actually have two and a half northeast, southwest. I gotta focus here. Stop watching the demo. Okay. Um, hey everybody, it's the T2sday. It's time for the T2sday update. Unfortunately for Samter and all of us, I have no videos to show this time. Oh, and I also don't have enough light on this subject there. How about that? No BV at the moment and so forth. I decided I would just try to do a regular talk as if I was still an academic. And the title of the talk is T2.5 tile. That is in quotes. Those are scare quotes to warn us off that there's something shifty about that name. So, okay. My feeling is that every proper talk should begin with the creation of the universe and work its way forward to what just happened, moments ago. So I'm going to start with some background. The folks, long-time T2 Tile project folks, this will probably not be much new, but hopefully it'll be fun anyway. Then eventually get to specifically what I did in June while I was failing to produce any new BV videos, in particular talking about the T2.5 tile, with my ideas for that are, and then the goals for next month. So I have had a mission in life ever since before I was conscious that I like to make things, do things by themselves. So the goal is make something, do something by itself. And I did that with toys and blocks and all kinds of things as a kid. And in high school, I found a computer. Our computer had a high school. Our high school had a computer, which was quite something back in the 70s, and we hacked our brains out on it. It was really wonderful. I went to college, still did all kinds of computers, went to graduate school, did all kinds of computers. So in the 1980s, I was doing machine learning, this connectionist approach, which at the time was all like radical, and artificial intelligence was not this. Whereas, of course, today, the connectionism has completely won, so much so that the word is barely used anymore. But that was then, and that was great, and that was fun. In the 90s, I started to shift from artificial intelligence, as we thought about it, to artificial life. And the main reason that I would tell myself is that it seems to me, if you're trying to predict what an organism is going to do, or what I'm going to do, in any moment of any day, you can probably get a lot more leverage out of the fact that I am a living organism than the fact that I am an intelligent organism. And so did a bunch of stuff exploring artificial life, and that was great. It was lots of fun. It's a great community. And that led to the 2000s, to the new millennium, when this collision between livingness and computationness smashed into each other in my mind so many times that it became living computation. And the essential idea of living computation is that living systems and computational systems turn out to be the same thing. Living systems and computer systems are going to be the same thing, and they may not seem that way now because we think about them in sort of limited, restricted ways. But if we understand them more generally in their more fullness, we will see that they go hand in hand, two sides of the same coin, that sort of thing. So on social media, I am living computation, and all of this stuff that we're now doing is being supported by the Living Computation Foundation, which you could become a Living Computation Foundation nerd if you have a little bit of spare change. And then in 2018, I started the T2 Tile project, a YouTube channel. This was the title card of the pilot episode, the first one. Notice it is episode number 10, status report number 10, not 1 or 0. So that's a little red flag that there's something weird going on about the episode numbering. But be that as it may. And the key part of that original pilot was this idea that if I'm saying we need a whole new kind of computer architecture that's very different than CPU and RAM, and it gives up a lot of the stuff that we really like about CPU and RAM, and in particular, it gives up complete predictability. It gives up complete repeatability. And, why would anybody do that? And so, yes, we say this is a hard pill to swallow, but it's going to give us great abilities down the road if we can just do it. So why would anybody believe me? Nobody should believe me. That's an extraordinary claim. So the idea is, let's just build it. And that's what I've been doing ever since. Enough so that by 2023, there is a wall of these tiles that are individually running little cellular automata, a particular kind of cellular automata, and then also connecting to its 6 nearest neighbors, if there are 6, so that the computation can spread. It's not limited to one particular set of machines. And from there, in 2024, last year, the thing about the projects that I had been doing previous to this was that they all were completely internal within the matrix, and I was interested in exploring what would it be like if the T2 matrix, the program that was running on it, cellular automata running on it, needed to interact with something that was outside the matrix. And so I wanted to do a robotic thing. Now, the T2 tiles are incredible. They're wonderful. I love them. They're my children, but they're really, really slow. And that was deliberate. That was my focus on the hardware design, software design, all of it was to be as conservative as possible, focus on doing something that had the best shot of working. And I kind of did get it to work pretty well. But as a consequence, it was very, very slow. So days and weeks and sometimes months to gather a long-running simulation. So there was no way I could have a real robot that was going to connect to this thing. But we made up BV, the simulated robot that was going to be controlled by the cellular automata. Why is it called BV? Because it's inspired by VB. It's inspired by Valentino Breitenberg, a psychologist who studied these very simple control mechanisms, which is in fact what BV first implemented before moving on. And And that brings us to today. So what happened in 2025? I want to talk about this T2.5 tile idea. So I talked about the T2 tiles being slow, and that is, from the point of view of just doing a demo and then showing it in time lapse, speeding it up so that days and weeks and months become minutes, seconds, and minutes. I'm okay with that because. Especially given that the whole thing is so brand new, it's unclear how we were going to build any of these things. I know a ton more about how to build this kind of stuff, how to program this kind of stuff than we did 5 years ago or 7 years ago. Oh my God, 2018 was 7 years ago. But the fact that it's so slow means that there's just a practical limit on how big the code can get, because it gets slower and slower. The bigger the things that you build are, slower and slower, because the signals have to propagate through this big object. The bigger the object gets, the longer it takes for signals to get all the way through it, and so the longer it takes to get to where the bug happens, and so the whole edit loop to develop the code gets slower and slower and slower. So the idea was, let's take one of these new computers that's coming out in the age of AI, when the goal is to mostly be able to do matrix multiplications, multiply a matrix by a vector, multiply the weights by the states, add them up. The stuff I did in the 80s that has now changed the world, and for good and for ill, and who knows exactly where it's all going to go. But as a result of that, and I'm going to skip the part about, everybody tells me, you should use GPUs to do this. And I understand that people saying that because GPUs are the poster child for parallel, do a whole bunch of stuff in parallel. The problem is, for the particular architecture I've got, the movable feast machine, it needs to be able to do different things at the same time, whereas GPUs excel at doing the same thing on a whole bunches of different data at the same time, and they're really not well suited to the kind of architecture I was using. But amongst these new architectures that are coming out, there's one from a startup, it's been around for quite a while, called T2sday, that is building parallel machines with hundreds of little cores in them that can all do different things at the same time. So in my simulations, I have all these different elements that are cellular automata that have different behaviors, and depending on which one is having an event, you have to run different code. And so I've been ramping up on black hole. I talked about it last month, the foundation, because we had a wonderful donor who came forward with a pile of money for us to do this. The Living Computation Foundation put it in order for a $12,000 machine called the T2sday black hole quiet box that's going to have 4 of these black hole cards in it, and hundreds and hundreds, like almost 500 of these complicated cores with lots of power in them, and so on and so forth. The underlying cores, it's really a lot of complicated, a lot of hardware, but the cores that I'm going to be focusing on inside the black hole chips are RISC-V, which is a very simple, relatively new, comes out of UC Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley. They've done tons of great stuff. And the important point about RISC-V is that it's open source, so that anybody can build on it. They have, conformance tests to make sure it doesn't get screwed up. So in June, I spent a lot of time reading a lot of stuff. Wow, and that's not what what's the very next thing? In addition, BV returning to the matrix. All right, let's push on. Since I pushed with my elbow. So in the T2 tile, there's, it's a complete architecture for cellular automata. Like I said, it's a very weird one, but it has all of these parameters, which I collectively, about, I guess, a decade ago, called the P3 parameters, because they were the third major set I had explored, that have all these things. It's, there's each atom, the fundamental unit of the cellular automata, has 96 bits, which is a ton compared to typical cellular automata. Well, it's varied these days. and so on and so forth, all these things. And now for this T2.5 tile, I'm not calling it a T3 tile because we're not going to be building an indefinitely scalable array of them, at least not at first, because we're just going to build whatever it takes to use the TENS torrent black hole quiet box as effectively as possible to do lots and lots of events, but to do them fast enough that we'll be able to interact with it. We'll be able to see it moving around rather than having to do time lapse all the time. The atom is, I'm bumping the atom size up to 128 bits because 128 bits is kind of the fundamental granularity of black hole. It just moves things in terms of 128 bits all over the place. So let's do it. In the P3 parameters, you could have 65,000 different types of elements. Like the periodic table of the P3 atom could have 65,000 squares in it. And I never came anywhere close to using that, and I never would be able to because it would get so incredibly slow to do it all. So I'm cutting that way back to 512 elements, and haven't gotten close to that yet. We've gotten a couple hundred, so it's comfortable, but it's not not ridiculous. And the important point is that there used to be 71 bits available for the programmer. Now there are 112 bits, almost a 50% bump. All right, BV returning to the T2 matrix. Here it is happening. Project BV 2025, that's the new code. Here, BV brain, gray and green. That was an old BV that was running from code that was running last year. And this is when I've just plugged in the new machine and it's starting to spread through it, but it doesn't work. This was just another fun little picture showing these black and red wires here are serial lines that connect certain tiles to the controlling computer, which is where the simulated robot is running. But there's a problem in the brain, so that's going to have to be debugged next month. In addition, I started working on rewrites for the living computation theory of everything. That started out as a video on the Dave Ackley channel. I'll put a link into it. Everybody should watch it if they haven't already seen it. But now we're turning it into an essay that's going to be part of these collected works of the Living Computation Foundation. And I had struggled a little bit to get it going, but friends are helping out and doing a lot of the formatting and getting it cleaned up based on a transcript of 2020. Revised for this upcoming book. And so I've managed to get going in it, so it makes me feel cautiously helpful. So, this is what I was supposed to get done. BV on the T2 matrix is on its way, isn't there. Ulam 6 release, I completely failed at. Quiet box site planning, a little bit. Have big fun. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. And this is my set of goals for next month. So during July, get the electrical stuff set up. I'm just checking about I'm not going to do it myself, but just getting out and getting an electrician in here. Try to have P4, teeny tiny little P4 spike, not anything general, not any big language, just some little teeny events, just so I can see that maybe it can work and have lots of big fun. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening to whatever fraction of this you happen to listen to. If you didn't listen all the way to the end, then you don't get thanked. But I still thank you for listening to whatever it is. And I hope to see you next time. All right. Well, so that went a little bit long, I guess. But whoops. There we go. But I will take it. And why don't we quick check in on the chat? David, hi. Why am I not seeing this? Oh, the window is too big. Whoa, there we go. Okay. Michael's here too. Wow, this is great. Hi, Michael. That Michael Littman there, for the folks that are in the room with him, all those A-Life papers from the 80s that I showed back there, a lot of them were co-written with that guy right there. And So yeah, so Samter, I was sorry not to have actual new BV for you, but we'll try to have something next month. Uh, uh, yeah, a computer in the 1970s. The IBM 1130 was an amazing little machine. It was only the size of like 3 washing machines, and that's not including the printer and the card reader and all the card punches and so on and so forth. Uh, um, uh, uh, Living and non-living entities are computational and informational. Okay, so David, uh, I would wonder how are non-living entities computational? Uh, um, because the living computation pitch is that they're the same thing. So if you find some way to say that there is life in this picture, there is life in this system, then there will be a way to say there is computation in this picture and vice versa. So if there's computation in this picture, then there will be some way, if there's meaningful computation in this picture, that it's all tied up together with meaning and life and computation and purpose and intent and all that stuff, as far as the living computation pitch. So if we're going to say there's computation there in some real sense, then we need to be able to say there's some living sense there as well. So non-living entities as computational, I would want to push back on that. Isn't using another architecture a bit risky? Okay. I see what you did there, Samter. The existing tiles, the T2s, I've got the Keymaster running here. I don't know if we can actually see it. It's all hooked up weird. You can sort of see it. That is actually running part of a BV brain simulation. I don't know if you really remember because it happened so quick in the time lapse. When BV's brain starts up, there's this bunch of flooding that goes out to find axons that are supposed to connect up. And the result is that since they can't find the mate, because the axon wanted to connect up to another neuron on a different tile that is not here, so it ends up just being completely packed full of the finding stuff. A great recap so far. Thank you, Samter. What are all these little crowns coming from? Is this a new thing? Where are these crown with numbers coming from? Oh yeah, risky. I started to say that the T2 tiles are actually based on a TI chip, which is ARM, which is also risky. Like that, it's a Cortex. I don't even remember all the details. Thanks for staying in the arena, in the living computation arena, and now going to another one. Yeah, and great to be here. Well, it's great to have you here. I really do appreciate your support, and you help remind me to try to get BV and get BV there right there, so that there'll be some fun content for people to watch. I almost at the beginning of this talk, since I didn't have anything, I almost made a snarky thing about the 30-seconders, because the YouTube content folks are always talking about how many of your viewers are still watching after 30 seconds, because that's the first important thing that YouTube is supposed to look at to see if you're doing well and deserve more gas on impressions. And I generally, don't do all that well, because I have stupid introductions where I talk about the title and, like a class beginning, where the important stuff comes later. And so, the 30-second crowd is long since gone before I actually get to anything. But I was trying to move those things earlier. I subscribe to the notion, Gert Tractor, that there's no hard boundary between living and not living, so it's not, does not. Right, I agree. And the living computation pitch is that, living systems is any system that works to preserve its patterns. And that can happen in a big, hairy, complex way with eggs and hatching and college and all this stuff, or it can happen in the simplest way. And my standard example is the eddy in the stream, a little bit of, a weird collection of rocks, rivers going by, a little whirlpool is going around and around and around and around, and it's taking a little bit of energy out of the river to make those things go around. That is a little bit of a system that is doing work to preserve its patterns, that little whirlpool, that little eddy in the stream. So according to this living computation approach, that little whirlpool, number one, is living a little bit, and number two is computing a little bit as well. So yeah, absolutely. And the phrase that we use sometimes is, this position is computational paganism. Life is where you find it, and computation is coming right along with it. It's picking the work that life is doing to try to preserve its patterns. Okay. So yeah, I don't know what's the deal. Nobody knows what these these crowns are, and I don't know. It must be some new thing. Let me go make sure. Right. Yeah, and so the autocatalytic set pitch, the idea of having groups of chemicals that mutually catalyze each other, even though it's not strictly living, and that there is, maybe has to do with the number or frequency of comments. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, non-living computation has no goals, and so I'm going to end up choosing, David, so I'm going to end up choosing to call that not computation. That's something else. And if it's important, if that non-living computation is doing something that allows another system to help preserve its pattern, then that becomes coupled together. So if I take something like a hammer and I say, no, the hammer doesn't have any goals, the hammer doesn't have any intent, the hammer doesn't do any work to preserve its pattern. But if the carpenter has the hammer and uses it to build a house to keep the rain off so he and his family can raise up the next generation, then that hammer has become part of a larger system, which itself is living and doing computing and so forth. It's just the hammer by itself is inert. It would not. It is not struggling to preserve itself, and therefore I'm going to exclude it from being life on its own, unless and until it becomes something that we can understand as a part of doing work to preserve its pattern. How about a system that can change its goals based on conditions? Well, so the idea, Gert, is that, yeah, absolutely, that the computation that living systems do is to react to circumstances changing, or even circumstances remaining the same. You have to have a living system is a physical system embodied in a larger physical system, and it has to preserve itself because there's stuff happening out there. There's something's going to run into you unless you move, and so on. So the computation is about taking signals, something, anything that you can from the outside world, and using that. I mean, again, this is now advanced computation. This is like adaptive systems. This is like, obviously, paramecium following sugar gradients and bugs and all that stuff, all the way up to Albert Einstein and whoever is actually smart and has good emotional quotient as well, and so, yeah, that being reactive to changes in the environment is one of the hallmarks of a system that's doing work to try to preserve its pattern, that by reacting so that it can take off its jacket so it doesn't get too hot, and so on and so forth. I had a lot of fun setting up Gray-Scott reaction diffusion systems. Yeah, absolutely. They're great. I mean, I tried to implement a Gray-Scott like system in the movable feast, and, and it was pretty much an unmitigated disaster because the Gray-Scott system depends on floating point a lot. It depends on having significant accuracy in the floating point. I would bet, for example, that if you took the things that pass for floating point these days in machine learning, like FP8s, stuff like that, which has barely like a bit, like 3 bits or 4 bits of precision, and you tried to implement Gray-Scott reaction diffusion things, it would work a lot differently than one would expect when you put in the parameters to the Gray-Scott model that are supposed to produce cool things like that. I couldn't get my number one integer, number two non-synchronous, number three like that, well, asynchronous, number two. So I got nowhere with Gray-Scott, and so then I felt like sour grapes. It's a fragile model, but it has cool patterns when it works. That's absolutely true. Javier, isn't the eddy in the river sort of like the hammer? It needs the exterior shape of the river to keep it going. Well, the eddy certainly depends on the energy that is provided by the river. So if we say the eddy and the river is like the hammer and the carpenter, then okay, yes. So that we have two systems. One is the river, which is providing this energy source that the eddy is skillfully going back and forth to try to keep its whirlpool from getting disrupted as long as it can, as long as the river don't rise or fall or whatever it is, and so forth. And you could spin the same sort of story about the hammer in the carpenter's workshop. Anticipatory systems, arrow living systems, and certainly anticipating, trying to predict what's going to happen next is like a super key, incredible win idea about how living systems can decide what to do to help preserve their pattern. So anticipation in the sense of being able to make predictions that are better than chance about what's going to happen next. Absolutely, it's a key part of what makes typical living systems, especially. I spend time on the boundary cases like eddies in the stream and so forth. But in the meat of the idea of living and computation, it's a lot clearer. FPA, yeah, and FP4. It's difficult. It's another conversation. I ratcheted up the number of chemicals and made the reactions more complex, but there was a limit to the complexity of the behavior I observed. So you're talking about generalizations of Gray-Scott now, and yeah, even just with two. Given that you've got like floating point reaction constants to put into the DiffEqs, the ODEs, PDEs. I hate math. Then you've got this unbelievably huge space even with two floating parameters, and if you now add more reactants, you've got like 4 parameters and so forth. So it's like, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. So I would imagine there's a limit to how much patience you would have trying to search the parameter space to see what kind of behavior could occur. But again, yeah, my feeling about Gray-Scott is that it's going to be very fragile, and we want something better. Yes. So eddy plus stream, hammer plus carpenter. Uh, um, and yeah, linear. Yeah, that when I started to talk about the number of bits in it's not linear. Really isn't a it's well, I guess it's a generalization of Conway's Game of Life, but yeah, it kind of is. But again, that linear is floating point. It's synchronous. It's deterministic, and so on. Although, you know, linear has immediately burst out into a million variations, because anything that has, cool looking stuff will. And But yeah, the thing that this seems absolutely true to me about linear is that if you try to figure out how many bits of state, how big the neighborhood is in linear, because you've got these floating point parameters that are having floating point interactions, they are quite complicated, quite a lot of bits going into that interaction. And I mean, is it the ultimate generalization? I wouldn't want to go ultimate, but certainly it is a cool one. And then people have found an awful lot of cool behavior in the linear, in the classic linear parameters, and in all the crazy variations that they do. Non-living systems are not anticipatory. I guess so. Yeah, I know. I know you're a math fan. I like integers. I don't like real numbers. I think real numbers are like Bolsheviks. They're named inappropriately. They should be called fake numbers. They should be called non-existent limits of floats, like that. But yes, different strokes. And Bertrand, Mr. Linear, roadmap from life to linear, including smooth life in the middle. Uh, uh, I mean, I certainly believe that the developmental path that Bertrand went through was definitely, well, I don't know if it was definitely, but it's easy for me to believe. I always assumed that Bertrand went out looking for continuous generalizations of things like the game of life, the unitary rules, and all that kind of stuff, and that would be a feature of it, and a feature of, so there would be resemblances in whatever he ended up with, assuming it worked well. Okay, so we agree that real numbers aren't. And I am fine with integers. I like unary numbers, especially. They're robust. You get bit errors in a unary number, you're off by one. Get bit error, binary numbers. People get so excited about binary numbers. My God, they're the most fragile possible representation in terms of bits that you could imagine. Actually, that's not true, right? Because floating point is even worse. You can flip a bit in the exponent of a floating point, and now you're off by many orders of magnitude, like that. But anyway, folks, thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for making these, for chatting. I don't know what these crowns are all about, but I say y'all deserve to see. Now, I don't know why Javier doesn't have a crown. Maybe this just is like how long people have been on YouTube or something. I don't know. Or how long people have been subscribed. Did you see? One of my friend keeps telling me that I'm supposed to do the like and subscribe business, and I've never done the like and subscribe business. It just sticks in my craw like that. But did you see? I did the like and subscribe business today in this video. I put it down at the bottom, like that. And all right. Yeah, well, Samter, I go back and forth. That and crown to you, Javier, as well. I went to YouTube because that was the place to go, and for videos, and I wanted to do videos, and in a lot of ways, the general crowd, the average YouTube viewer, which is a terrible concept to think it's any kind of statistic at all, the median mode, anything, YouTube viewer does not exist. Is not looking for advanced architectural or philosophical or anything research, except for this tiny little log percent of the population, and I'm kind of okay with that. It would be nice if there was enough views that it could build buzz, and then the buzz could help spread the ideas. Because but again, that's ultimately on me, and I have to find ways to make the ideas, and this is why I'm enjoying and want to push the living computation theory of everything further down the road, make it clearer what's going on in there, and because I think it's very, very understandable, really. So I just need to do a better job, and to sneak up on people so they will have understood it before they realized exactly what the consequences of understanding it were, and then I'll have them. Then they'll be stuck. All right. Well, I'm winding down, and it's getting hot in here. So maybe we should call it for this time, but thank you, everybody. Thanks for showing up, and thanks for yakking it up too, because I love that. And more and more people getting interested in the real nuts and bolts, because of the surge of AI in everyday life. More and more people. I don't know. I get the impression that computer science enrollment is kind of up again, or I'm not sure, if that's true everywhere or what, but I without having gone for any data or anything, I sort of got the impression that there was growth happening, and that part of it would be just the kickback from machine learning, and doing all the stuff that it does do. I mean, to me, the most interesting thing about the state of machine learning these days, out in the world, people interacting with it and getting to know it, is what it says about the way our brains work. There was this whole stochastic parrot idea as a way of dismissing what AI machine learning systems do, large language models do. And there's absolutely a germ of truth to that. But on the other hand, also a germ of truth to an awful lot of things that people say are essentially being stochastic parrot stuff. They're just listening superficially, and they hear something that reminds them of something, and they go bop 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 bop, like that. Nice to get more views and engagement. Don't let the gimmicks keep you from making the content. Well, I tried to do that today. The problem, the open secret about being a YouTube creator is that it takes a tremendous amount of work. And if you talk to any of these maker folks, like, Peter Schriepol or Winter Gatan or Colin Furze or any of these things, you'll always hear it in asides, that they'll say things like, it takes longer to make the video than it does to make the project. Like that, because you have to set up the camera, you have to keep remembering, you have to do things, you have to edit it, you have to cut it, you have to do the sound, all of that stuff. And typically, at some point, you can start hiring people to help you with that if you're going the Mr. Beast route. But for most normal people, they don't start out with a crew, and number two, they never get big enough for them, and so that's my situation. I I don't want to spend that much time making these videos better. I absolutely believe they would help bring in more people including the influencers who might cause the thing to go a little bit more viral and have more impact and cause a cascade of a fractal viral, to reach thousands instead of hundreds like that. You don't have to go straight to billions. Anyway, so the I've lost the focus. Don't let YouTube's gimmicks try to keep you from making the content you want. Uh, um, oh well, I was just again trying to say I'm trying to get the ideas out there so that they'll be on the record in some lame way. I mean, writing a paper takes forever too. So saying just publish papers, unless you've got a stable of grad students. Even then, it all takes a ton of work. And so I want to spend as much time as possible, even here in my old age when I'm supposed to be management. I want to actually get hands dirty and make code. I want to get hands dirty and build physical stuff. I want to make things that do things by themselves. After all these years, that's still what I want to do. And so anything else that takes away from that is a cost center from the fun, from what I really want to work on. So, and I was going to ask at some point, would you ever consider using an AI to write code for the? Well, put it this way, Samter. Now. I use AI I use the Kagi gives me some, slightly old large language model access for free, given that I'm already paying for search. I get that for free on top. And when I'm writing a conventional language, when I'm writing stuff in Python, I will use it. I now believe that in many cases I can get working code put together faster by asking a large language model, and then going around with it when it screws up and lies and all that kind of stuff, rather than just going with search and ending up on Stack Overflow and trying to read through the stuff. The summarization, for all its risks, it helps. The problem, of course, is that usually I'm not programming in a conventional language. I have asked the large language models, could you write me a simple Ulam program that demonstrates the features of the language? And to its credit, when I tried it, it said something like, Ulam is a niche programming language used for robust first programming, and I do not actually know how to write code in it. That's not the way it said it. It said it in a way that made it sound better. But number one, it had actually heard of it. It interpreted Ulam correctly as I was saying a programming language, Ulam. And it knew enough to say it didn't know it, like that. So again, when I'm writing code for the T2 quiet box, the T2 tends torrent gets a little the black hole quiet box is the official name of the system. When I'm writing Python code for the thing, because a lot of their API is in Python code. The rest of it's a lot of it's in C++, and a lot of it's very modern C++ that I'm not that good on. I sort of settled on C11 or die, like that. Again, at this point, I do not use Copilot or any of these special tools that try to generate big giant piles of code and encourage you to run it, that kind of thing. I haven't done that yet. But as far as just getting answers to specific questions, how do I do blah in Python? How do I do blah in C++ if I want to do blah, that kind of thing. At this point, I go to large language models first. So, kind of some of both. Wonder what would happen if you showed AIs excerpts of Ulam. Maybe they could pick it up. Certainly, It's funny because, like I'm just, I did machine learning in the 80s, so I'm completely behind on all of the stuff that's happening. And it's happening so fast that let the young kids, let the kids deal like that. So I have to believe it would not be that hard to take some large language model and do a training on top of it to give it tons of ulam. Tons of whatever there is available ulam, and then starting to deal with it, starting to say, could you write more of it like that? And I think it could well learn enough to be, I think it could learn enough to be useful to people who aren't me, to help other programmers start in Ulam. I think that could be a wonderful thing because it could integrate lots of the techniques that I use over and over again. And say, well, one way to do that is to have a blah, 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 and make a quark and an element and a blah, whatever it is. Ever tried adding some documentation for that language to a RAG enhanced, so retrieval augmented generator RAG enhanced LLM? So, good Morty, thank you for imagining there is some documentation. There is. No, I've never tried it. But, the reference manual is on the wiki. There's a bunch of stuff. There's limited documentation. But again, this is like a tiny, tiny project. So, and the project was built, the repo was started long before the era of test-driven development and continuous integration and all of that stuff. So it's an old-fashioned boomer code base. Ooh. And nobody wants to get too close to like that. So there's not a ton of documentation, and what there is, except for the language reference manual itself, mostly I think it would be about giving it code to just see how it looks. How about COBOL track simula, and what about it? I would assume the large language models would happily write "Hello World" for me in COBOL, or maybe even APL, Snowball, like that. Again, as long as there's enough stuff out there, it'd be fun to try. But not enough hours in the day. Grok 4 is supposedly right around the corner for real this time and will be better at coding. Yeah, but again, it'll be better at coding popular languages. It will not be better at coding Ulam. I would put good money on that. Anyway, so thank you for the question, Samter. So, yeah, I was certainly late. I was early and then late. I was early to machine learning, like 30 years or 40 years early. And then I'm now late to, using large language models for answering questions and doing all that kind of stuff. Or, writing letters for me or whatever it is like that. I am just mostly just watching from the sidelines. We'll see how it goes, like that. Okay, and now, geez, got another 20 minutes. And all right, so start showing Grok some example. Well, I would love to see any results you have on that, and see if it can write a fork bomb or just do some of the super little sample codes in Ulam that are only a dozen lines long or 30 or 40 lines, something like that. Okay, folks. Thanks, Gert, for coming. I appreciate it. I appreciate your questions. And this was wonderful. This makes me super happy. Because, I'm a little bit weird. It's okay. I can say it. And so finding the people that are interested enough to come along and have chats about this stuff, it's great. Thank you, David. And now these numbers are changing. Now you have a number 3 crown. Missing pawn test. Okay. I don't know. That's like a FizzBuzz programming example or something like that. Uh, um, okay. Anyway, let's call it. And well, and you know, if folks can stand the Discord, like yeah, parameterized. I see you in the Discord. And so the conversations can continue at, you know, more asynchronous speed. All right, so now I'm going to end the stream down here. Okay. All right. So that's it. I mean, can I put hearts on the thing? Can I do this? Whoops. Oh yeah, but it's like totally obvious that I'm doing it, huh? Excuse me. I should really mute the mic, shouldn't I? All right, that's it. Bye, folks.